Now you should have two sets of ties that are folded and two rectangles that are 7.5 by 8. In what I'm showing, they can all be the same color fabric for you. In what I'm showing you, I wanted you to see the different pieces. So for me, this is going to be the front of my mask, this is going to be the back of my mask, and these are going to be the ties. The first thing you're going to do is you are going to take the two pieces that are 8 by 7 and you are going to put them together right sides together. Right sides means the nice side. So on this fabric, this is the right side, so I want it to be in the middle, but you might have a plain fabric, which is a solid color. This doesn't have a technical right or wrong. It just matters on what you're sewing it. So I'm going to put them together. If you want to pin them, you can, but you don't have to. If you are making this mask for yourself or a friend and you want an extra level of filtration, you can also add a piece right now. These industrial towels have been tested by a company out of LA to show to provide more filtration. So you would just put that layer on top here. I'm actually going to flip this over because I'm sewing with white thread so you can see what I'm sewing. But we are going to sew along the top and bottom edge. And how you know the top and bottom edge is when you open it up, like if your fabric, like my heads, I want them to be on the top and the feet on the bottom.
How your pattern aligns.
Yes.
What would be the point of pinning? Just to hold it together a little bit more. To hold it together.
These, so I don't really feel like you need to on this because they're the same shape, same size. They're gonna lay together.
Okay.
Pinning becomes more important later on when you got different angles and different size pieces and you have to put them together. So we are going to sew along the bottom and top with 3/8 of an inch, but we're going to leave a place for a nose wire to go in. So go ahead and get yourself a piece of Scotch tape, and along the top you want to put that piece of Scotch tape right in the middle, and this is just a reminder for you. 3/8, if you can zoom in here, is the first, usually the first mark on your sewing machine. So sorry for the, so the edge of presser foot is 1/4 and 3/8 is the first one there. I'm going to start by sewing the bottom seam because that one goes the whole way through. A pro tip that I have found is when you start off the edge of the fabric, you have a higher chance of it gnarling. So I actually start a little bit in on the edge of the fabric, sew a couple stitches, and then you're going to hold down your reverse. Wherever your reverse is on the machine, you're going to back up to the very edge of the fabric and then come forward again. You just are watching that these edges stay even and they stay on that 3/8 line. When we get to this end of the fabric, we're actually gonna get to the end, then hold down the reverse and back up a couple stitches and come back forward. And that is called back stitching, and you do it at the beginning and end of each seam because it keeps it from being able to pull apart. So that's on the bottom. On the top edge, we're gonna repeat that.
I just want to look at that little, yeah.
Now here is when you get up to your tape, you're gonna sew right up to it and back stitch. You're actually gonna pull it off, snip that, and then we're gonna sew from this side of the tape to the edge. If you sew a little bit into your tape, it's not a big deal. Put back stitch at the beginning and end. Okay. And at this point, I will want you to take a picture for your standard portfolio, whatever side shows the stitching best. This is where we see how straight of seams you get. Then we are going to turn it inside out. So go ahead and clip all your threads. I have this little knarl on this end that sometimes starts out when you're beginning and the tail gets knotted up in there. It didn't stop me from sewing. Because it's on the inside, I'm gonna leave it. Oh, sorry, did you want to zoom? And then we are gonna remove your tape. Oh, there's one more thread I got here.
If they had that, would it hurt their grade?
No. If this was top stitching or stitching that was showing on the outside, then I would go back and fix it a little bit more, but it's going to be inside.
I see.
You're going to turn this right side out through the sides. And then we're going to press it. What you want to make sure is that this seam is really on the edge. So you kind of wiggle it between your fingers until that seam is on the edge of that fold. And you press. Pressing is a little different than ironing. Ironing, you usually do a lot more back and forth motion, but pressing is just heat held in place. I'll show you the difference if I didn't wiggle that fold. So say like I just press down right now. If you look, like you can see some of that fabric on the back end. So you just want to make sure that this seam is really on the edge. Actually, it's kind of hard now that I did that.
Emphasis on do it right the first time.
Yeah. We're gonna sew one more stitch. And this one is actually going to be from this edge. You're gonna sew the whole way through at 3/8.
And that is...
That's to give that channel for the nose piece.
And that's the top.
Yes, yes, it is the top, correct. So that's that edge. And then the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do pleats. You could go ahead and measure and make small pleats, but there is a hack that I actually found that I like a lot better. So, I feel like I say sew a lot, and I don't know. Do I mean S-O or S-E-W? You're gonna fold it in half and press. Yeah, open it up and go again to that middle. Kind of like what you did with the bias tape. Just press that. And then when you open it back up, that gives you exactly where to pleat. So you're gonna pull those down one to each other.
So you're kind of doing like halfway in between the other creases.
And it'll look funny. Yes. Well, actually, so you're pleating about a 1/2 inch, and I know what a 1/2 inch is, so, but you can measure it. But once you pleat the first one, it's about like halfway to the bottom. And then the next one, you actually just feel where the fold is, and you fold to that point. You feel where the fold is up here, and you go to this point. And now we actually want to hold these into place. If you get really seasoned and good, you don't even have to do that anymore. But we are going to do something called basting. And basting is a temporary stitch that's not meant to, that either you take out later or it gets sewn under. In this case, it'll get sewn under our ties. You are going to turn up your stitch length to a 4. That's temporary. 2.5 is what we're doing for all standard seams. And this one you're going to make, you're going to sew right at the edge of your presser foot or just inside. Oh, I forget that this is not my first time. I can hold them in place. Some other tricks for doing this is you can pin, and we're stitching here, so you don't even have to remove those pins, but those can hold it in place while you stitch that.
Because the whole goal here is just to really hold the pleat
Yes.
in place.
Correct. Temporarily until we get it inside the ties.
Why do we want it pleated?
Because that's what creates shape, so it's smaller around your cheek, but then expands out through your chin and nose. You don't have to backstitch when you're basting, and it doesn't have to particularly be straight. It's just holding those pleats in place, and it's just easier to work with. It's easier to sew. See, I don't know if you see, but I'm not particularly going straight. I'm just making sure that line is close to the edge.
Because that stitch is going to not
Get
matter.
covered up, yes. So now I have this pleated piece.
Is that something you want them to take a picture of for their portfolio?
No, because I'll be able to see this on the final project. The reason you took a picture before when the seam is once it's turned inside out, I can't see that anymore. So, all right. So we've got it pleated. Now we're going to start on our last step.